Okay, this is our first time in the history of idiots versus idiots. We have a subscriber question.
Woo! Yes.
Yeah.
I am telling all my fake friends about this.
Yeah, so the subscriber is actually someone in my family, so.
Oh, well, hey, why'd you have to tell that? We could have rode that one for a while.
But we will link down in the description the 2020's most profitable franchises.
Yes.
And the question that I wanted to talk to you about this was,
I took a look at this list.
yeah. So, what are your thoughts on franchising in general? I know at some point in time, weren't you a Century 21 franchisee?
At one point, I was, yes.
Okay, not anymore.
No.
At one point, a long time ago. Do you think franchises? And I'll talk about my opinion on them. Do you still think they are worth investing into? And do you think they're a decent path to entrepreneurship?
I think that it's a more complicated question than are they good or not. I think 90% of franchises are almost but worthless. I mean, the amount of franchising opportunities, quote unquote, out there are a lot of them are just take advantage of people in a lot of different ways. I've invested in companies, not specifically franchises, but companies that do franchises that then I've invested in enough of them to see how bad ones are run, and they're run into the ground, and then they go to make zero money and leave franchisors out there in the cold. There's a lot of really bad ones, and it's hard because of the way they're marketed to know the difference between good ones and bad ones.
Right.
So to me, 90% is a no. They are not worth it. If you want to start a carpet cleaning business or you want to start a maid service business, you can just as easily market yourself and make just as much money and keep all of your money. Now, there are exceptions. There is that 10%, like that list that you were referring to.
Yeah. So
when
let me
you
read
have
just
high-quality names that bring a value.
So let me just talk about the ones that we're seeing here, the top 10. Starting with 10, Ace Hardware, Supercuts, Jan Pro, Pearl Vision, Anytime Fitness, The Maids, Dream Vacations, the UPS Store, which, hey, I mean, in a pandemic year, right? People are buying a lot of stuff on Amazon. How do you do returns? UPS Store. Dunkin' Donuts, or it's just Dunkin' now, because America runs on Dunkin'.
Right.
And, of course, Mac Arnold's, number one, McDonald's. Here's my thoughts on franchising. Here's what I think is interesting. If you're going to go buy a franchise, kind of like what you said, if they offer something to you that you can't build on your own, right? And because if they offer a name that people recognize, if they offer something, and I know, we actually know someone. You probably don't remember him, but he was a franchisee of a sandwich place.
Okay.
I won't say which one, but it was a launching point for him. He was in the franchise he rode it up. He rode the franchise to its peak, sold off his stores, and it was an opportunity for him to be an entrepreneur where, sometimes entrepreneurship requires a certain amount of creativity and a certain amount of this and that. Mm-hmm. And we talked about, I think it was a few episodes ago, a friend of yours who owns a pizza franchise.
Right.
Had no previous business experience, and that's where I think buying a franchise is maybe the opportunity that franchising offers. If you get a chunk of cash from a settlement or whatever, an inheritance, who knows, or you just save your money and you don't buy a house and you buy a franchise instead. I think what's interesting though is, a friend of mine and I had looked into buying two different franchises. He was from the South, and this is back when I lived up north, but he's like, dude, you guys don't have Chick-fil-A here and you don't have Sonic. And we looked at both of those franchises, and one thing that they had in common, and Chick-fil-A is fantastic to its franchisees.
It is.
Right?
Yeah.
It's really good to you. And they don't make you take any debt. You borrow money from Chick-fil-A.
Exactly.
I think you put up $7,000, but here's the thing. Chick-fil-A is a rule. You got to work 30 hours a week in a restaurant, and there is no, that's it. And for a lot of people, that might be like, well, yeah, but dude, if I'm going to go work 40 hours somewhere, I'd rather work 30 in a place that I own.
Right.
And I'd rather, where that doesn't have all this startup costs and all this stuff. And they, maybe you have a value alignment of your values there. But it's like, well, let's say, for instance, you were a manager of a Taco Bell or something. I know somebody who used to manage Taco Bell made 40 grand a year,
Mm-hmm.
45,000 bucks a year. I mean, if you can put the money together and you can get approved, and they have a pretty lengthy process because you're not paying them a lot of money. They're making the money on the back end. But to me, as someone I wouldn't call myself an established entrepreneur, but my thought process on entrepreneurship is a little more developed. I'd go, why would I buy myself a job?
Well, what you're doing is
If I don't
buying a
have
blueprint.
severability,
You're buying a blueprint, right? And yes, certain entrepreneurs, I know several that have done the franchising route, and if it fits their personality types, I think really good franchises bring a couple of things to the table. One of them you kind of alluded to there, that their process is kind of lengthy. Any good franchise is going to have reasons why their process is so lengthy or expensive. There's several franchises out there that you have to not only put up this fee, but you have to be worth a certain amount of money to guarantee that you can afford to run this kind of business and that kind of stuff. And what is that? Do you really need that amount of money to run it? No. They're trying to create hurdles to eliminate certain types of people. Chick-fil-A is creating hurdles so that their business owners, they're trying to get to a certain type of person, right? The person that wants skin in the game, the person that, you know what I mean? The whole financing it themselves and stuff like that. By the way, benefits them, because if you don't keep up your payments and whatever, they're going to just take over the restaurant.
The store back, yeah.
Right. So they're doing all these things for a reason, right? The ones that fall in the other 90% are occasionally a lot of these low cost, right, franchises of names that you don't recognize and stuff like that, that yes, they provide you with a blueprint, but they don't provide you with what you just said, that name recognition, which is really the biggest part of a franchise. Is McDonald's doesn't fail.
No.
McDonald's as a company, you put a new McDonald's, I don't care if it's 3 blocks from the last McDonald's don't fail. Chick-fil-A's don't fail. Ace Hardwares aren't going to fail. The only one that I found that was weird for me on that top 10 list.
No, I think I don't know anything about Ace Hardware. I'm not disparaging them. I'm just saying, I don't know let me just put it this way. I don't own one, and I wouldn't put my money into an Ace Hardware.
Well, again, but the one that was on that list that I found was the Dream Finders one, the travel agent. Dream Vacations, the travel agent.
Dream Finders.
I'm sorry.
This show with you is impossible.
Okay, Dream Finders is I'm a real estate agent. Dream Finders is a home builder here in Central Texas. Sorry about that. Dream Vacations. I can't tell you the last time I used a vacation agency. You know what I mean? It doesn't, because when's the last time anybody did? I thought the internet killed these companies a long time ago. The last time I used one was a couple of years ago. I took the kids to Walt Disney, and I used an actual Walt Disney. Believe it or not, they have actual Walt Disney. That's all she sells is packages to Walt Disney, and it was cheaper than I could get myself. Now, how she accomplished that, I have no idea, but she did, and it was cheaper to go through her than it was for me to book everything. But how does Dream Vacation still exist, and how are they a franchise in 2020?
I remember maybe it was 5 years ago, my dad's uncle was booking a flight, and he's like, I just went over to the Sears vacation desk. I was like, pardon? What? He lives in Canada, and he had to come here. He was coming to visit my dad for something. He's like, oh yeah, I just went over to my dad's like, so like, you buy it on Expedia? Did you buy it directly from Delta? He's like, no, I bought it from Sears travel agent desk. He's like, what? That was a thing? I didn't know Sears was up there still, but like it blew my mind. He got here.
Well, hey, but and maybe it is still a thing in certain places. Maybe it's a high end thing, right? Where people that don't want to do their own stuff, they still call it this. So
like another one that so some of these where I have a friend who was going to buy a franchise or might still buy a franchise. It was a cleaning company, and he had already owned his own cleaning business. And I was like, yeah, but you realize if you give these people, I don't know, however many dollars it was, let's say 50 grand. Like, do you know what you could do with how much advertising? You could saturate an entire region with marketing for $10,000.
Well,
You
but
could become the face of cleaning in a certain region for $15,000, and it's not complicated, man. You just scrub stuff.
Well, but
Like,
yes, from an employee standpoint, but like I have a guy here that actually a previous client and a good friend of mine that I think is about to franchise his cleaning company, and he's looking at it, but this is where a lot of companies, and again these franchise companies, the missing piece is, even if I give you a blueprint, even if I give you marketing, a lot of these certain things like cleaning companies, especially commercial cleaning companies, which is the one my buddy owned, a company he started from scratch, not a franchise, and I mean he's doing something like $3 million in business all by himself. You know what I mean?
well, I
Each
mean,
year, and
the Tecate year is a good year to be out there starting a cleaning business.
well, yeah,
Right?
but it's so the problem is how did he create that? He didn't create it by marketing. He created through the people that he knew. He knew a bunch of these places to get go. He had owned a cleaning company years ago and got out of the business. He went right back to those people and said, "Hey, I've started another cleaning company or whatever." So he had contracts out of the gate from what he knew, and
Right.
he knew people. He didn't have to build it from scratch, and then that led to business, that led to business. Now, oh, by the way, it's partially because he does a damn good job at what he does, right? He
Yeah.
employs really good people.
So like he's built relationships, but I have relationships with people that they could be like, hey man, I'm starting a business selling X, Y, and Z. I'd be like, good for you, but I'm not buying anything from you because you're an idiot. So if you have solid processes, that could be like a value
Sure.
proposition to somebody. But I'm just saying some of these companies, it's not to disparage any of them, right? And for a lot of people, they want to be an entrepreneur, they want to be a business owner, they want to get on that other side of the cash flow quadrant that Kiyosaki taught us all about. They don't know how. And so I think franchising solves that how. And I feel for a lot of people, it might not be a lifelong journey. It could be one of those things where you buy the business, you build it up, you sell it to somebody who owns 50 units, and they're just rolling up the entire thing, and that you're going to go on to bigger and better things. And this is that one exit that very few people have those opportunities in life to get wealthy. This might be a thing where put down 50 grand, you give it everything you got for 10 years, and you exit on the other side with 4 or 5 million bucks, and then you go invest it into something else. But I'm just saying, like, there's a lot of it's interesting to me, and I do think there's going to be an emerging model where it's I would call it a hybrid franchise, where they're going to go, you call it whatever you want. Here's the blueprint, and
Right.
we're going to set you up with these suppliers. And if you go find the best suppliers, you can set up an agreement. And I know someone who's done this as a franchisee. You go set up the suppliers and you say, hey, I'm going to bring you 50,000 or whatever. Let's say I'm going to bring you 1,000 new customers this year.
Yeah.
I want back end on the customers, right? So you get out of a situation where you're forcing somebody into this thing and you're there to coach them through it. And I know somebody who bought a different franchise making subs, not the first person I mentioned, and they failed.
Right.
And it was so sad. They took everything they had. They were a regional manager for Subway. This company came in from Florida, and the CEO of the company was there for 2 weeks helping them out. Like they did their best, but they simply failed. They actually purchased an old Subway because the Subway had moved into a new complex down the street. So they had but it's just one of those things. It failed, right? And the nice thing would have been if they say, hey, here's the place to go buy organic meats and cheeses and all the other stuff you want. Here's how we suggest you organize your store. Here's how we suggest it. They're going to give you ideas that you would have never thought of, right?
Right.
They already have a proven method. They have stores still standing today. But it would give people the opportunity to really be creative, start their own thing, and own a brand, but still have. And I know this is actually a thing that exists already in the tanning industry, the tanning salon industry. So, but anyways, I just think that was really cool. We got a first subscriber question.
Well, and a great question, because I think this is one of those that obviously you and I both have opinions and a little bit of conflicting of opinions on it, but it is one of those things that you can sit for the next 6 months learning nothing about but franchising and still have varying opinions, right? There is no magic bullet here.
And I know some like franchise brokers, and that's their job is,
Absolutely.
hey, I want to go start a business, and you don't pay them; they get paid by whichever franchise you end up choosing. And it's not bad to go sit down with someone like that and have a conversation, because most of them, they probably have 100 conversations and sell one franchise, and that's their business. And if this is something you are interested in, I compel you, I demand that you go find the absolute slickest lawyer you can find. Got to make you feel. Here's how you know if you found a good attorney: they make you feel a little gross on the inside. That's a good lawyer.
That is to Danny. I don't feel that way at all.
I feel that way.
Go ahead. I
because I want someone who's looking at the law as a flexible, malleable thing.
I judge my lawyers by giving them a scenario and based on their reactions. So
So I call you at 3:00 in the morning, and then he goes, "Listen, I'm a franchise attorney. I don't do criminal." But find a franchise attorney. Listen, it's worth paying. If you're thinking I'm going to go invest 50, 100, 150, whatever thousands of dollars, if you're thinking you're going to go invest $5,000 into a franchise, it is worth paying a guy $500 to go, this contract is written to screw you left and right at every angle.
Sure.
You have to buy crappy vacuums from this company. You have to buy crappy cleaning supplies. It won't. This is a dumb contract. It's worth spending the $500 to understand that $5,000 investment would have been flushed down the drain. It's worth that money. So I command you right now, if you're going to start a franchise, find yourself a fantastic franchise attorney, and it may behoove you to find a franchise broker in your area. That we don't have a service or anyone we're going to refer to, but.
And by the way, those are the minimums. If you have not, if you're looking at franchises and you haven't contacted a franchise lawyer and you haven't contacted a franchise broker, I think you have done yourself a disservice. So I think, to me, those are the two minimums. Because one of the other things that a franchise broker is going to do for you is or a good franchise broker is going to ask you what you're wanting out of it and what you're willing to give into it. Because like you said, there are different franchises. Some people want to own a franchise. They want to hire somebody to run it. They want to go out about their business. And you can't do that with some franchises and stuff like that. So
and they have ownership requirements that you may not, because like you were saying, man, if I have to be in a Chick-fil-A 30 hours a week, I did something wrong. That's my view of things.
Right.
But there might be somebody out there who is managing a McDonald's, Taco Bell, whatever. It's like, that'd be great. I get Sundays off, and it's going to cut their hours and increase their net worth. And it's totally worth it to them. And
apparently there's a lot of them out there because there's a lot of people that own Chick-fil-A's, right? So, so apparently there's a lot of people out there. But that's the point. You just need to make sure you know what you're getting into. The ones that I know that have failed are ones that I think...
They certainly weren't on this list, that's for sure.
Right. Well, that was definitely right. A lot of them I know that weren't on that list, but they were also. I would say that 90% of the people that I know that failed in franchising didn't go see that franchise lawyer. They didn't go see that franchise broker. They kind of jumped right into something, right, because of the cost of it or whatever, and there were obvious red flags along the way is all I'm saying, right? Avoidable red flags along the way.
We're going to jump to this next story, but fun factoid to end this one on is I think it's 65 or 70%, something wild like that, of the Duncan system is franchised by my people, the Browns, not the Browns.
Oh, really? Being
Indian
a Longhorn fans, when I think Duncan, I just know that Colt McCoy owns like 38 of them here in Texas.
I don't know who that is.
Colt McCoy was a Longhorn quarterback that then made it to the NFL and still plays for the NFL. He's actually started for the Giants the last couple of weeks, which Giants are garbage. But he owns like 38 of them. But again, think about this. This guy, this goes specifically to what I was just talking about. Here's a guy that if you're a Longhorn fan, which a lot of the state of Texas is, right? if you're a University of Texas Longhorn fan, you know who Colt McCoy is.
Right.
And if you know that your Dunkin' Donuts down the street is owned by
Colt
McCoy,
McCoy. Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Like that.
You're going there over Starbucks.
Yeah, that's smart for Colt McCoy to buy Dunkin' Donuts or Dunkin' franchises in the state of Texas versus I'm going to buy 38 all over the country.
Mark Wahlberg owns a Chevrolet dealership in Ohio.
That is awesome that Marky Mark does anything. But yes.
Underwear model, felon.
Yeah.
Accidentally did a race crime, but that's no big thing. We're a forgiving country.
Nobody remembers that. All right, what's your fourth one?